Good morning. It is the 28th of November, Thursday, and Thanksgiving. So the New York Stock Exchange is closed. Just remember that going into the open period that we are expecting a reduced volume. Just because we have reduced volume doesn't mean we have reduced volatility. Remember that. Looking into Bitcoin specifically with the long short ratios, we talked about the move yesterday, how we were moving back up as people were shorting heavily into that kind of move to the upside. Trading a bit flat and stagnant, but still a little bit of longs jumping in just because we've started to break down the last 2 or 3 4 hour periods. Nothing too dramatic in all honesty. Still looking pretty decent and still back towards that 50-50 level, which is good in the long term. Looking at the funding rates, so open interest funding still very positive. What does positive funding rates do, or what do? They incentivize liquidity providers and market makers to take short positions. So that's the way that's still happening. They're still getting heavily incentivized to take those positions to build back the short order book as price went over 99K. That being said, it's still pretty mild as compared to a couple of days ago where it was like 0.06, which was some of the highest I've seen. In general, it's still a lot of downside pressure. BitMEX is back at 0.01, which is its standard, which is nice to see. But overall, still looking pretty decent. Not majorly incentivized downside. However, we do still have that kind of priority as we're failing under 96K. In any case, the local liquidity map, just looking over the last 2 days, we've got some pretty juicy stuff right below us, right back towards 94.5, and all the way back down to the potential lows. We have broken some local structure, but nothing major and nothing in the significant higher time frame, that's for sure. Looking at like the weekly outlook in this level, that short liquidity starting to build back above. We had to drive up into it. We're seeing more and more stack higher and above us. Where it's starting to get thin below us, but there is still some decent amount if we're going to have that kind of continuation move down. We don't want to make any new lows under what we did on the 26th, which was Tuesday. If we do, then we're probably looking for a deeper retest of 90K at 89.8 specifically. Looking at the 2 week, just to give kind of like a general perspective of the zone. There we go. If we do come back down and test the lows again, we start running into the big issue of grabbing all that larger liquidity to the downside. This structure now is very much indicative of building back short liquidity with downside priority still. We did break up really hard yesterday, which is nice. So we have the ability to kind of change that trend. We want to see some nice bullish back tests and some continuations. I still think the first test of the highs from what we did on Monday up towards like 98K, I think that there's an easy, head short to not break the high if we come back up to that move. But in the local stuff, you've got some very low time frame downside priority. You've made some really good regains of levels, so you want to see some holds for some continuation higher and a flip back of the loss at 96K, which has now pushed us back lower. Looking over to the chart itself for the general plan. So nothing's really changed yesterday to today. We had the nice move up. We talked about that bullish back test that regained the level. That looked really attractive, especially going on in the afternoon, right? We weren't breaking stuff, but the moment we started flipping and bullishly back testing levels, that's attractive for an upside move. We've now had a push up above 96K, which is nice to see. However, that turned out to be a really quick fake out. We closed back below the level, and we have failed now below the daily open, which is local resistance. So we still have 96K as the major level. We want to see a regain of that to retest the weekly open at 98K and potentially even higher towards 99K where we have a lot of resistance. As we break back to the downside locally, we want to see aggressive holds of level. The better we hold the structure that we regained at 92.8 yesterday, the better we look at for a potential move back to the upside. But we are, as we talked about earlier, building that kind of flagging structure, allowing short liquidity to stack above previous highs and basically build back the short order book. So all in all, it still looks decent. Just a heads up, remember last cycle, we dumped, I think in a 2-day period around Thanksgiving, we dumped 17%. We're not really confirmed done. We've actually, higher time frame, we've failed some structure to go potentially lower. It's not all confirmed yet, but it still looks in that direction at the very least. So just looking at the higher time frame here to give some daily perspective, we have some very clear levels that we want to see held at the daily lows. We don't want to see any closes effectively under 92K on the daily. This is basically just a back test. We've now tested the high structure as well, and now we're in this kind of like daily mid-swing structure. I would expect that any loss of 92K, we start testing overall lows sub 90K towards 87, and until that happens, I think we still have the chance to recover the structure. Now we can build it out and flag out for a while I think getting back in, getting the data coming in from Black Friday tomorrow, kind of shopping and spending of retail consumers, it'll definitely have an impact on the market as a whole, not just on TradFi, but on crypto as well. The big thing right now to keep an eye on as Bitcoin's starting to go a bit sideways, you're seeing the volume drop off, and you're seeing Ethereum and some other altcoins having pretty decent volume across the board. So keep that in mind as you're trading today. Nothing too crazy to say, in all honesty. You're seeing that local failure. I'm down here on the 1 hour. There's some good structure to retest. We've got some local priority change back down, and you want to see some aggressive holds of level. Losing stuff is bad. We have to come back and test the lows. About the lowest we can really go is back towards about 92K to retest that structure, and then bounce right back off to come retest what we've done basically in the last 12 hours or so. But that's it. Take it easy and be really skeptical about trading on low volume days when you have market closures. More and more, we're seeing that Bitcoin starts to respect the TradFi notion of, holidays and weekends are just not optimal conditions to take positions. So sometimes the best trade is no trade. That's it. Peace out.